welcome to another exciting episode of the Andre The Beast Crayton Show. Today I am excited because, like I've always said, I never know when I walk through the I Am Beast studio, and today is no exception to the rule. Let me explain to you how this came about. First of all, I am Indiana crazy. Love Indiana. I'm from Georgia. I was born in Georgia, but I consider Indiana my home. It's been a great place for me. I've seen hard times, good times, but Indiana's always been my home. But not just Indiana in general. Let's talk about Carmel, Indiana. I love Carmel, Indiana. Let me give you a little history on Carmel, Indiana. It's been voted #1 place to live, I believe, for over 10 years in Fortune 500 magazine. Still ranked one of the top 5 places to live in the United States of America. Let's give some other shouts out to the other surrounding areas in Indiana that border the beautiful city of Carmel. Let's talk about Westfield, fast growing. Let's talk about Fishers. Did I leave anything out?
Noblesville?
And Noblesville. Why not think about Noblesville? 146 in Hazeldale. Like to welcome to the show the one that keeps all that going, the newly elected mayor of Carmel, Indiana, the one, the only, Sue Finkam. Welcome to the show.
Hi, everybody, and thank you very much for the intro. That's amazing.
I've been wanting to do this for quite some time. Because when somebody says, hey, Andre, Carmel's on, I'm like, hey, I'm on it. Before we get started, tell the viewers a little bit about who you are.
I'm a mom of one who's, knock on wood, graduating from Indiana University this year.
Okay.
Wife for 26 years. I have to do the math. But
Right.
a Michigan kid, grew up in Michigan, and a business professional. So all of that led me to then eventually getting elected to be mayor of the amazing Carmel, Indiana, as you've
I like
introduced.
the way you said that. But off camera we was doing a little pre, and we got kind of like the same type of degree. You wanted to be in exercise science.
My undergrad degree was sports medicine, so I was a licensed athletic trainer for many years.
Oh, I remember. Did you try to get a job with the Colts?
I did not try to get a job with the Colts. I kind of diverged at that point to a different setting. So, yeah, I was telling him that I wanted to be, my first goal was to be the first head athletic trainer in the NFL that was female.
Right.
Now, that's not happened yet. So, that's a long time ago. It makes me sad that it still hasn't happened. But, right out of college, I got an interesting opportunity to work in the industrial setting, taking care of injured workers in a manufacturing facility, and that kind of changed my outlook that these were athletes too, and they needed care. And from that, I went into ergonomics consulting and health, sports medicine, marketing, that kind of realm of the world. Into now, what I was doing right before I became mayor was running my own marketing agency. So,
speaking of running for mayor, Mayor Brenner has been around for years.
Yep.
Definitely did a great job with Carmel. It's funny because I talked to my daughter, and she's from Carmel. She went to Carmel school system, and I can remember when Carmel was just like a little road here, a little road there,
yes,
a piece of land here. Now it's truly a major city.
Yep, with an international reputation, thanks to Mayor Brainerd.
Yeah.
He got there and knocked on a lot of doors, and everybody said, we need a downtown. We don't really have a downtown. And, once you create a community where people have a sense of belongingness, it will grow.
Yeah.
And so he did a great job developing this downtown, putting in streets and sidewalks to start, and then bringing in little stores that people wanted to do. And then roundabouts, exactly.
How many roundabouts do we have? 300 and...
150.
I remember the first roundabout. It was actually by my gym. Where 31 used to be like just 2 lanes. And I remember coming out of my gym one day, and there was this round thing. And I'm like, what is that? And come back years later, they're all over the place.
Yep.
That's a big shoe to follow. First
Absolutely.
of all, how did that even come about? Because I know you just didn't wake up one day and go, I'm gonna take on this responsibility.
So in 2010, I decided to run for city council.
Okay.
And that was because we had moved to Carmel at that point. I'd been there a few years, and it was a deep dissatisfaction with the person that was representing my district. And I had a little, I guess he would have been 8-year-old at that time, and I'm like, I want a better role model. Right. And so I kept saying, I'm going to use my marketing and PR skills to help whoever runs. and nobody was running, and I thought, okay, this is an opportunity for me to, put my heart on the ballot, so to speak. And so I did that and won.
Right.
And so served on the city council for 12 years. And, I had a very busy, full active career in a variety of places during the 12 years I served on council. But then when it became apparent Mayor Brainerd may not run again, I really gave serious consideration to who should be in that and did I want to do that. And I had a lot of people encourage me to take the opportunity. But, a very successful marketing agency, and you really do put your life on hold to run for office like that. And
were you already pretty well known in Carmel prior to going for the position?
Yeah, pretty well known. I think I did a survey in 2022. Now, I served on city council for 12 years, and I think I had a name awareness of, I think it was like 36%.
Okay.
Which is pretty interesting.
Right.
Because I would have thought it'd been higher, but I think everybody always thinks it's higher. There's a lot of people that don't pay attention to local government.
Right.
And I represented a district, not the whole city. So, but it was within 6% of the other gentleman who was running and who had represented the whole city for 16 years. So I still thought it was pretty fair. But anyway, so I threw my name in the hat, and obviously it turned out the way we wanted it to. But you introduced something. You said you got big shoes to fill, and I do. In that, he was an incredible leader with incredible vision that had fortitude and really put the blinders on and just got stuff done. Right. But a friend of mine gave me great advice and said, when people tell you got big shoes to fill, just remind them you wear different shoes.
Right.
But different kind of leader, different kind of vision.
How did Brainerd feel about you wanting to step into that role or even running for his title?
Initially, he didn't think I could win. And that's because the gentleman I was running against had a $500,000 already in the bank for his campaign account and had a head start.
Right. Money does play a key factor.
It does play a key factor. It's not cheap. It cost me from the when I announced November 15th to when I won November 7th over $1 million.
Wow.
So
was it hard for you to get people to back you, because you mentioned you was like 30-something, and being in marketing, you probably thought you was like way up here. How do you really compete against somebody that's already coming out the gate with unmentionable amounts of money that he can just touch?
So I think you work from your base, right? And so I did have a lot of people that supported me in the 12 years I was on council, and so I think it's being authentic.
I like
right?
that.
So it's about your message, and it's also about hard work. And I think, what I heard time and time again in the primary was that and right before the primary filing deadline ended, we ended up with a third candidate. So it was 3 candidates. And I just decided no one was going to outwork me. It wasn't going to happen. And that I was all in on this. And so I was going to die trying.
What was the hardest part of that? You said you wanted to outwork them. Like, how much resources did the other 2 individuals have over you? Well, really one. We know the one had, but what was the other
I think at the end of the primary, the one candidate had raised $630,000 or $640,000. I had raised $140,000, and I think the other one had raised $50,000 or $60,000. I can't remember that one exactly.
Right.
So that's just financial resources, right? It's time resources. My one, both of them, I think, had more time than me as well as far as during the day. I was still running an agency with clients across the country, with roughly 10 people, husband and son. Yep.
Yeah.
And so I feel like it was just grit, right? It was just no one was going to outwork, and I was hardcore on the grassroots. So we said one vote at a time, one person, one vote at a time. So I was doing meet and greet after meet and greet after meet and greet in people's homes, and I was.
So you was literally knocking on doors, old school.
Knocking on doors and setting up meet and greets, and I was slaying it on social. That's my background, right? And so I was just out there all the time. And so I wanted people to say, she's not going away. She's not backing down. She has an authentic message. She understands the city. She's a professional businesswoman.
Right. That's what I liked when I looked at it. Yeah. I was like, okay, when he decided to not run or whatever the situation was, I was like, okay, my first thing is who's going to fill this guy's shoes? You know what I mean? Because you have a city that's growing, but not only is it growing, but you're setting trends for the other communities, the Westfields, the Noblesville, the Fishers, and
across the country.
The country. When I saw your bios on LinkedIn and so far, I say, she's going to win.
Well,
And it wasn't the fact that it was nothing. What stood out was everything was grassroots. There was, there was nothing else in there that made me say, okay, well, she's about the money, this and this. I saw the family structure. I saw exactly what Carmel stood for in that bio. And I said, if she don't win, there has to be a serious problem. With that said, what was some of the things that you had to encounter going for that position? Because you're not from here. Let's be honest. Some of these people are from here. They got their foot already in the door. So that had to be a tough climb for you.
I think the things I had to deal with were
establishment, yourself?
I don't know. You could almost argue that I was part of the establishment since I'd been there for 12 years, right?
Okay.
I think part of it was my one competitor had a head start, had been telling people for a long time he was going to run. I was going to Germany when the mayor announced he wasn't running. I was coming back from Germany when my competitor announced he was running, and I sat back and just watched the response. And I was like, you know what, I'm not seeing this overwhelming excitement that I would expect. I'm like, I think this is my time.
Yeah.
And so when I announced, we got great feedback. I think the challenge is female candidates have a little bit harder road to hoe a little bit in these races. People ask a female candidate, how are you handling your family issues, but they won't ask a male candidate that.
I was getting ready to ask you that.
Yeah, and even with my son being 22 now, there's still kind of questions about, is she a good mom? Is she a good mom if she want to take all this time to do this? If you get too intense with something, then you can be labeled as bitchy.
Right.
If I have a tendency to sit back and read the room and then make my, comments known. So I had to really kind of come out and be a little more forceful in certain things. Because if I wasn't, then she's just sitting there, she's too soft.
Right.
Right? If I didn't wear the right heel height, I wasn't dressed up enough. If I wore pants that were too tight to the leg, I was wearing tights, not slacks.
You had a lot to worry about.
Some of the comments are constant, but they weren't commenting on my competitors' khakis, right? They're kind of my pant length or my shoe type, not necessarily the content of my thought.
Right.
So that is part of it. The Center for American Women in Politics is at Rutgers, and they've got a lot of good data on women running.
Right.
And women will wait because they want to be asked, because there's a self-confidence issue, and then they have to have everything perfect. Okay, so my son will be in 8th grade, and my 2 dogs will be out of potty training, and my book club will be done with this, and my job will be this, and my husband's job will be this. Women just want to line up everything perfect, and like, okay, and now I need all this education, and I need money, and I need support, and really, really try to line everything up.
Right.
We're the air traffic controllers of our families, so we have to do that to ourselves before we want to run.
Right.
Men will be like, I'm running for Congress today, right?
Right.
And so it's a difference in the genders for sure, and so there's a difference in how people perceive the, female versus male candidates as well.
How supportive was your husband? He had to be. Let me rephrase it.
Yeah.
What was the advice that your husband gave to you, or what did he say when you acknowledged to not only to him but your son that you're going to run for this office?
So he's always been, do what you want. Do what you want, I'm fine with it. It's funny because earlier in our lives together, he had more experience working for bigger brands. He'd worked for Frito-Lay and Keebler and General Motors, and I'd worked for smaller, like physical therapy or rehab type companies, or eventually hospital systems. And so he had more, what I'll say, bigger business experience. And so he was always just more of a matter of fact about just do it, just get it done. And I tend to work for nonprofits and healthcare, so I was a little more worried about feelings and people and those kind of things. So he helped me kind of get over some of that early in our lives. Mm-hmm. And so then later on when I'm like, I think I want to run for council, which is honestly more important in our life because we had a little guy at that time.
Right.
But this one was a different conversation. It was like, your life is going to be put on display as much as mine is, Joe. Are you okay with that? And so you're going to be judged as much as I am almost, right, in this process. Are you okay with that? And he's always been super supportive and very blessed. Do what you want to do. We'll figure it out. I think the bigger conversation we had to have was when I wanted to run my own business while he already had his own business.
Oh, okay.
Because then it was like, and he's been an entrepreneur most of our lives together. So I had to literally say, it's my turn to be an entrepreneur. you have to help back me now. But again, he was very supportive, so I'm very lucky.
What do you think? You've been in Carmel for quite some time. We've seen the leadership that Brainerd has brought to Indianapolis, Carmel. What do you see differently happen with us now? I mean, like, what's your vision?
You know what I say? What I said in the campaign trails: what got us here won't get us there. When I got on council 12 years ago, the Monon Trail was built, but there was no development much around it. So there really wasn't this community built around our rail trails, the Monon Trail that I'm talking about, which has been, something that's been converted across the country, trails, rails going to trails. And we've had $2 billion of investment in that around that trail since I've been on council.
Right.
So that was just coming on. We've put $500 million in our road infrastructure since I've been on council. We bonded a lot. We were very aggressive in moving forward with zoning changes to develop this incredible central core of our city.
When
it's
you say
built
zoning,
now, right?
When you say zoning changes,
Yeah.
how does that help the entrepreneurship? I remember talking to Brainerd about this a while back. I wanted to see more infrastructure with young entrepreneurs, bringing small businesses in versus bringing franchises like we see in Indianapolis downtown. It's a big difference from being downtown Indianapolis versus Carmel. So what do you see for small entrepreneurs that love Carmel, that want to stay in Carmel, that want to flourish and bring their businesses to Carmel?
Well, you asked what my vision was earlier. That's one of the things I really want to focus on, right, is entrepreneurialism. We're getting ready to start a commission on small business and entrepreneurialism to focus on that. To really understand today's entrepreneur, what do they need? We didn't have any co-working spaces just 5 years ago, or 6 years ago, somewhere in there, and now we have 4, and so that helps. But what we're missing, and I was just talking with Jack Russell at our One Zone Chamber of Commerce about this yesterday, is he's doing a great job trying to help certify XBEs. And then, but where do they go from there? Now they've got their business, they're growing it, they're getting certified, but they still need guidance, right, to help this fledgling business grow and prosper. So we were dreaming a little bit yesterday about what kind of program can we put together where we work with Small Business Development Center or SCORE, which is that retired corps of executives, where we bring in attorneys and accountants and those to help take them to the next level. And then maybe they go into a co-working space and then have space on their own. I think there's also an opportunity.
I really like that.
Yeah.
I wish they did that a while back, because I was thinking the same thing. Like, even if you had something like that, because it takes 5 years to see a business, and that doesn't mean you're gonna make profit in that 5 years.
Right.
But to even have it sustained for 5 years, individuals usually get stuck after that point. So I like that idea.
Yeah, and I feel like it's growing community though too.
Okay.
Right. So the biggest thing I've heard from business owners, large and small, is we haven't done a good enough job fostering the sense of community within the business environment in Carmel.
Right.
If we know each other and we're struggling with the same thing, or payroll, or getting talent, or relocating, or finding an affordable place to have our business, you and I can have that conversation on the phone, and maybe connect us with a third person or a fourth person. We need to put some framework in place, and so that's what I'm hoping some of this commission will do, is get a diverse group of people around a table and have conversations that are meaningful to those other business owners in our community. And eventually, I'd love to see a space where we dedicate some, to that, whether it be with the Chamber of Commerce or who knows. I'm dreaming a little bit, but with people who are business oriented, want to help other businesses grow.
What about our school system? Carmel has always had an excellent school system.
Yeah.
My daughter went there. I seen the struggles that she also went through with diversity in the school system. What's your take on that, and how do we instruct that into where we have a little bit more diversity? Because when you go outside of the Carmel region, let's say what it is, Marion County, they're a little timid to come into the Westfields, the Fishers, and the Carmels, because they say, well, we don't have we're not recognized. And I find that hard to believe. But what's your take on that?
So first, and I'm glad you brought this up, I think Carmel's a lot more diverse than people recognize. We have 107 languages spoken from 87 countries in our community. Our school itself, which by the way, because this is different in different states, our city government has no control or influence or financial input into our school system.
Wow.
We are just good partners. If we develop a great community, they benefit. So that's what we
Right.
try to do. But we've got great leaders there. But we're, I think it's pushing 35% non-white in our school. So it is a diverse school. It's just not recognized as such. I think we have 14% Asian in our population and 15% foreign born in Carmel. So it's just a much more international, really cosmopolitan city than I think people give us credit for. And one of my visions is, and one of the things I ran on was finding a way to make sure there's unity in all these different cultures that live in Carmel. And I'm working on an international district. And I don't know how long it'll take. We're going to work on it until we get it right. We can launch it where we can celebrate the language differences and celebrate the ethnic food, celebrate the dance and the art that's different, have a space where our large ethnic groups can have their big family dinners and bring their ethnic food and have to rely on a catering facility to do that. So that would involve entrepreneurial restaurants too, right? Incubators.
Yeah.
Have office space, have living space, have a big hotel. They can do big Indian weddings, right? Really, really deeply invest and have a special place where people can celebrate the different cultures. And also move our Oktoberfest and our Carmel International Arts Festival, have Muslim Fest, have Diwali, have those kind of things on our streetscape in the International District. That's the big vision for part of what I want to do.
What about affordable living in Carmel? Because I'm seeing tremendous growth in housing development, but I'm seeing very little as far as affordable housing. And the only reason why I asked is because I never knew that there was a quote unquote lower poor area of Carmel. Because a lot of my guests, they come on the show, they might say, well, I'm from Carmel and I grew up poor. I'm like, where's poor in Carmel? Like, tell me the street. But I don't see much. Let me rephrase this. What is your thought on building affordable housing for people that want to move and transition into Carmel from, let's say, the Indianapolis area to have these opportunities that naturally you're going to bring to the city?
So first, there's very little area to build out single-family houses.
Look,
anymore.
I'm thinking that thing too.
Yeah,
like, where
so
do we build?
we've approved an apartment building, for instance, that has a segment of affordable housing in it. It just hasn't broke ground yet. So we approved it, I think, 3 years ago. So we have to be very thoughtful. And this is a problem across the country, not just U.S. or not just Carmel.
Right.
Because I think the last thing I read two different things. One said we're 9 million housing units short. One said we're 5.5 million housing units short in the United States. So when there's a shortage, supply short, demand goes up, costs go higher.
Right.
Our land right now in Carmel is sitting at $5 million an acre. So to say I'm going to build an affordable anything is challenging right now. So it's hard for our small businesses, our retailers. I think one of the last buildings that went up, the square footage is $40 a square foot.
Wow.
Commercial. Now that's not all of our commercial square footage, but my point is it's challenging and we recognize it, and so we put together a housing task force to talk about affordability, accessibility, and availability of all types of housing.
Right.
We've only had one meeting so far. One of the big things that come out, of course, the data shows that we don't have affordable housing. It's not. We have the same thing.
Did the data show that?
Yeah, the data showed that.
Man, I'm doing good because I just asked.
Yeah, the data showed that. It shows it all in Hamilton County.
Really? Yeah.
But also it shows that we also are missing this middle section of housing. We have thousands of residents in apartments, but there's no place to go next.
Right.
Because the next jump to for sale is probably in the 400,000 and above range. That's hard for a kid who's 27, you lived in an apartment 5 years after college,
right,
and has been so busy paying off student loans they can't put any money away for a house.
right.
So it's challenging for us. It's challenging for everybody in Central Indiana, and it's going to be a talent problem, right? So
Right.
that's why, not to mention, it's a humanity issue. It's also a talent problem, workforce problem.
What was the one thing that when you get hired in, you got the job, you're celebrating, all of a sudden, you're like the president. There's a bunch of unfilled stuff or promissory things that's on your desk. How do you know which ones need to be addressed? And give me 3 of them that you picked right off the bat and said, these are things we need to focus on first, and why.
So first, we asked a question during transition time: was what's the biggest risk I have to worry about? What's the mayor not know that she should know? Luckily, there weren't very many of those.
Okay.
Job one was understanding the lawsuits that were out there. I inherited a few lawsuits, so we identified those. We knocked off one this week as a settlement, so that's good. Working another one today.
Okay.
But the biggest thing for me that I want to tackle, and I've been working on since day one, is culture. Culture within the walls of City Hall and our entire city workforce.
Explain that.
Well, I just feel like, culture is going to happen whether you want it to or not, right?
Right,
and so
right.
if you want a good, healthy culture for your employees to thrive, you need to work it every single day. And we had some departments where we had some toxic elements, or we have maybe some things where we didn't put enough attention on, and how we do promotions and how we do job titles and how we do compensation. Those things chip away at a culture. Also getting people to recognize each other as valuable entities. We had silos in place. And so I would hear an employee say, well, that's not my problem, that's engineering's problem. Well, if it's engineering problem, it's my problem. If it's my problem, it's your problem. So it's all of our problem, right?
How do we solve it?
So how do we work together and break down those silos? And we have great people at the City of Carmel who are helping me every day make that culture transformation. So one of the first things I did was, it was really about 3 weeks into me taking office, was do all employee meetings. That may sound simple, but we'd never done it at the City of Carmel before. It's a little challenging when you have operations for 675 people, not counting our parks department, which is a 24/7. We got firefighters and police, street department, water and sewer who work around the clock. And so, trying to get that done took a little bit of finesse and hard work for a lot of people. But it's important to me that I get in front of people and say, these are my expectations. We are going to treat each other well. We are going to perform at a high level. We are going to measure our performance, and we're going to be super transparent in how we do it.
Right.
That's a change in how Mayor Brainerd led. It's not bad how he led. It's different. I'm a different leader. But those are things that are important to me that I think today's workers want. And certainly today's community members want transparency, right?
Yeah.
And we're going to be fiscally responsible on top of all of it. So,
One thing I can honestly say that I love about Carmel is I never lock my doors. Crazy. People say, man, it's crazy. And I was like, our police department makes sure that I'm safe. What's your take on that? We have a strong police department.
We do. We have a brand new leader as our police department, a younger guy who's already doing great work in the 3 weeks he's been on. And there's a tradition of excellence in our police department. They're not perfect, like nobody's perfect, but they work hard every day to hold each other accountable to taking care of our streets and our people. And that is going to continue. I can guarantee it.
I'll tell you, as a man of color, and you've heard the rumors about if you're black and you go through Carmel. I remember one day leaving my studio, and I got right there at right before you get to 116th Street, and the guy comes. Well, first I know he was on my side because it was raining, and I pulled, and he got in front of him. He got behind me, and he cut his lights on, and I was like, "Oh my God!" I let my window down, and what he did? He's like, "Hey, I just wanted to let you know that your license plate tag was out." And I was like, "Wow," He's like, "Don't," it's just his approach and how he approached me made me feel very comfortable.
Good.
And, because it could have went from what you hear people say. It could have just went totally awesome, out, to the left. But he was, hey, I just pulled you over, let you know that your thing was out. You probably didn't know, blah blah blah. Just ran my license and said, hey, have a nice day.
Yep.
I felt really good behind that.
Good. I think we've got again really good men and women in our police department who really care about our community and who want to make sure it's the best place ever, and they want to be the best, recognized the best police department. And again, like none of our departments, including myself, are perfect, but we want to make sure we're trying to get there. I got pulled over day 4 after being mayor, if it helps.
All right, wait a minute, hold on. They didn't run your tag to see.
Well, the funny thing is, it was a dealer plate because I just got a city vehicle. But even then, she pulled me over for doing a lane change, and I didn't do just one lane change. I did 2 because I kind of changed at 146th Street. I went over 2 lanes going because it was really backed up. I'm like, I'll just take a right down Hazeldale. Right. And I didn't use my turn signal. 7 o'clock on a Friday night, and she pulled me over, and she she didn't recognize me, which is beautiful because she did her job, right?
Right.
And she came back and gave me a warning, again, a written warning. She
Yeah.
did her job, and said, hey, you should use a turn signal because it was kind of erratic movement. Yep, it was. Absolutely. Thanks for keeping the road safe. Thanks for doing your job. So none of us are immune from getting pulled over. I still have a dealer plate because we had a challenge getting this car payment process and some other things, but that'll probably change this weekend.
How well do you work with the other great surrounding Indiana suburbs, the Westfields, the Noblesvilles, the Fishers?
I'm so glad you asked that because that was one of the things I talked about during my campaign as well. Is I felt it was really important to have close working relationships. We're not always going to agree.
Right.
There's going to be things we disagree on. But those other three mayors of Westfield, Fishers, and Noblesville are great people.
Right.
They're running great communities. They attack their community growth and leadership a little bit differently, which I respect.
What do you mean they attack it a little bit?
Well, they're just different people, and they have just slightly different philosophies on how they want to, and different communities that they inherited, right?
Right.
Westfield is an amazing, for those of you who don't know, Westfield's got what's called Grand Park, and it's the largest sports park in the country.
Humongously.
And it brings in 6 or 7 million visitors a year. So they've kind of the sports angle. Carmel has had an arts and a built environment angle. Fishers has built its future on entrepreneurialism and being a smart, tech-oriented environment. And then we've got Noblesville. It's got this incredibly beautiful, historic downtown with the river running through it.
Yeah.
And is kind of a few years behind maybe Carmel, Fishers, and there's corporate development, but Chris Jensen, the mayor there, is growing that angle as well. And so we've all got this slightly different approach to what we want to do and how we've been built over time from other mayors. And we find a way to make that differentiation matter. But now we get a chance to have conversations that focus on the strengths that we have together. And I think it's super exciting for the future of Hamilton County and Central Indiana.
I like that. And I always thought about that as I drive through our beautiful suburbs. I wonder, do they sit down and communicate with each other so they can all benefit? Because you can see the infrastructure pretty much looks the same with the retail at the bottom, and you see kind of like a mirrorization of everything. So I'm asking myself, are they all communicating with each other to say, well, this didn't work, well, it might work over here, and vice versa?
Yeah.
With that said, what makes the Carmel areas, the Fishers, the Westfield, different from the Indianapolis area? They're not toning in on what we're doing out here in the inner city, bringing it into the inner city?
So I think in Indianapolis,
I see a small development in Indianapolis, but I understand that the structure is old, so you just can't go and rip out and rebuild.
Much more. So Indianapolis is a unicorn because of what they call Unigov, right? Where the entire county is the city. Mm-hmm. And so that's unlike anywhere else in the country pretty much as well. So they've got a lot of land they have to take care of. The old city limits is really like roughly 3 to 4 miles around city center. Mm-hmm. And that's a lot more manageable. They have the entire county. It had some cost savings with it when at the time in the 70s when it was enacted, and it has had some cost challenges on the flip side for so much to manage. So first and foremost, it's more manageable for us to handle our downtowns. Mm-hmm. 2, we've been fast growing. We have higher income areas when you look at the whole city, amount of land. And so we can afford sometimes to do more because of the higher incomes. But I think it's also been, those mayors have done a really good job, like Mayor Brainerd and other mayors in Hamilton County, of really selling the case of why this matters, why we want a quality built environment, why we want transportation network that's safe, keeps traffic moving, right? Mm-hmm. So we can be very, very focused and very intentional in our approach, and I think that's paid off.
What's in the future for you? Outside of getting reelected numerous times, that's gonna happen.
I don't know about numerous times, but in the future, I just want to do a really kick-ass job for my citizens. Job one. I want to be trusted. I want to be I'm authentic leader, as I said before. That's important to me. So I want to work really hard for the people of Carmel, and whatever comes after that comes. But I'm not looking to climb the ladder. I don't want to be governor, senator, lieutenant governor, any of that. I want to be a great mayor. Period. And then hopefully I can go do what I did last week and sip tequila in the Mexican Baja Peninsula and have a really good time.
Leave the viewers with something that drives you every single day.
What drives me every single day, I am just focused on performance, and I don't know if it came from the sports medicine
Yeah, it
thing.
did.
You know, I stood for hours and hours and hours watching offensive linemen change their stance from their fingertips to their knuckles to their palms to their, you know, like and back and just trying to get half a second. Or watching sprinters get just as much time better, faster, stronger, right? Whether I had that mindset going into sports medicine or sports medicine drilled it into me, I have this internal mechanism where I'm constantly keeping score. And so when I decide something matters to me, I'm keeping score. And so what drives me is just to be better every single day for the things that matter: my family, my personal self, our community. And so hopefully a little bit of that's contagious, right?
Yeah.
With the city and the people who I care for every day within the city payroll. Hopefully it's contagious around those who serve on boards and commissions. So what drives me every day is to see a group of people come together and just do better all the time. That drives me.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is the mayor of Carmel, Indiana. Close the show out for me.
With what?
You close it out. I'm gonna let you do it. You've been on TV numerous times. Close my show out. I'm giving you the honors today.
Oh my goodness. Thanks everybody for tuning in today. This guy's an incredible leader in his own right, bringing more information and more value to you every time he turns those cameras on. So thank you for your support of me, of him, of Carmel. Be great people. Have a good week.
This has been another exciting episode of the